Don't move, because I need you to stick around to participate in the questioning of our next guest. We've been joined by Jay Sekulow, who is on the president's legal team. Counselor, thank you very much for joining us.
Sure.
My first question, I'm afraid, is going to verge on plain English. Where did the Attorney General get off with that characterization this morning, including 4 mentions that there was no collusion? What document was he reading compared to the one we're left with?
Well, page 2 of the document says the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. So it's right from the document itself.
Have you read part 1?
I have read part 1 and part 2.
You find good news in here for the president and the administration?
The investigation did not, page 181, the investigation did not establish that the contacts described in volume 1, that's the Russian contacts, amounted to an agreement to commit any violation of federal criminal law, including foreign influence and campaign finance laws. Yeah, I think it's a very good win.
Nicole Wallace.
Hi, Jay.
Hey, Nicole. Hey, Nicole. How are you? Good.
I'm not a fancy lawyer, so maybe we can switch over.
You're very smart, though. Go ahead.
To normal people speak.
Sure.
I've read a lot of news accounts with your quotes about the rebuttal. Are you intending to rebut any part of the obstruction report that Robert Mueller released today?
Right now, we were prepared, and as you can imagine, as lawyers would be, for multiple scenarios here. Right now, we're responding to the media requests like you all did, and like you all asked, and we're responding. Right now, we haven't decided whether we will need to release anything. My expectation is right now we don't.
Well, the entire obstruction report seems to be made up of terribly incriminating depictions of the president's conduct. I presume Don McGahn is someone you hold in high regard, Jay?
Well, let me tell you what.
Yes or no question, Jay. Is Don McGahn someone you hold in high regard?
I think. Look, I don't know Don McGahn that well. I know from his testimony. I'm sure Don's a fine person. Let me say this, okay? This is what it says. Page 78. Don McGahn ultimately did not quit, and the president did not follow up on the McGahn's request. Page.
Jay, I've got my own copy of the report. You're here because we're so lucky to get to talk to you. So I'd love to hear from you. I want your opinion about Don. Don McGahn is the central
commentary.
I'm not asking you to, but you're here to offer your analysis.
Okay.
Do you believe
my
Don McGahn?
My analysis is that the witnesses that testified, that the statements they made, when put through the lens that even the Department of Justice under Bob Mueller, what he was operating under, his version of obstruction, did not rise to the level of obstruction. And what's interesting and important, Bill Barr said, even though they didn't agree with those theories of the case, they still looked at it through the lens that Bob Mueller had set forward and determined that there was no obstruction. And let's be honest here, and I know you are, Bob Mueller did not bring a case for obstruction because if he had one, he would have said there was obstruction and would have made that statement. He said there were difficult questions of law and fact. And when you have difficult questions of law and fact, you don't bring a case. And that's exactly what happened here.
I guess, Jay, I'm not challenging you on your read of the report. And obviously, we all get to read the same words. But when we have your time, I would just love, you and Don McGahn, the conservative legal circle is not a wide ocean of people. We both know it's a pretty small universe. And you and Don McGahn were both in it. You both served Donald Trump. Don McGahn's testimony, as we see from the footnotes here, is devastating for your client, Donald Trump. He sought to have Jeff Sessions unrecuse himself, another member of that very small.
Okay, I'm not going to get into ad hominem attacks on anybody. What I'm going to say is this, okay?
I'm asking you what your assessment is as the president's lawyer of the content as described here by witnesses like Don McGahn.
Yeah, my assessment is, Nicole, as is the assessment of the United States Department of Justice, including the Office of Legal Counsel, and ultimately Bob Mueller's, there was no obstruction.
Is that a high enough bar for the President of the United States, Jay?
Well,
that you didn't commit any criminal obstruction. Let's go back to work.
That's the legal standard that applies to situations like this under not only the guidelines that are set forth within the case law in the District of Columbia, but also within the Justice Department manual.
As I said, fancy lawyer speak, but I'm asking you about the conduct that's described here. Does any of this were you prepared to have to defend your client from trying to fire Robert Mueller, which was obviously under scrutiny for many, many months, trying to get Jeff Sessions to unrecuse,
Robert Mueller completed his investigation and did his report and was not fired.
Ari Melber.
Jay, good afternoon to you. Ari Melber here. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
And given that you represent The president, I would say, as a legal matter, congratulations that there is some good news in the report for you, your client.
Thanks.
Let me drill down on two important points we'd love to learn about from you. Number one, the White House counsel received this early copy of at least a redacted version of the report. If the report is fair and good for you, is it really appropriate for one side that was the subject of the probe to get that early version, and when did you receive it? And then number two, while there is good news, as I mentioned, Mr. Mueller makes very clear in this report that the Attorney General has released that, quote, the investigation established several individuals affiliated with the Trump campaign lied to the office and Congress about their interactions with Russian-affiliated individuals in related matters. Those lies materially impaired the investigation of Russian election interference. Is your position that you accept that finding? And if so, does your client, the president, condemn those kind of lies that interfered with his own Justice Department's probe?
Let's do this in order. So restate your first question, because your second one was pretty long. So give me your first question again so I can respond to that, and then I'll do number two.
The first question is, when did you receive this report? And
so
is it appropriate for the White House to get an early copy before Congress?
Well, of course, the White House, I didn't receive it as the White House would have, as the private counsel. So I want to be clear on that. So the White House would have received it, and I don't know the details of how they received it, within the interagency, it's interdepartmental. It's all Article 2. It's all within the executive. So that's how they would have received it.
I suppose I'm looking for a date for when you and they received it.
I don't know when they received it. I could tell you that we put in a request, I believe it was Thursday of last week, that since our client was the subject of the report, that we should be given an opportunity to review it, not to edit it, not to change it, not to redact it, to review it. And as Bill Barr said, under the practices under the Office of Government Ethics Act, we were allowed to see it. We reviewed it on Tuesday late afternoon and then Wednesday morning.
So you, as the lawyer for the president, received this on Tuesday with others?
Some on Tuesday, some on Wednesday, and it was with a team of lawyers.
And you don't see any appearance of impropriety, given that your client is the potential subject of part of this, that
no, of course
you received
not,
it before the Congress?
Precisely because of what you just said. Since our client was the subject of a lot of the discussion in the report, that's the practice under the Office of Government Ethics, as Bill Barr set forward. And you would see it before something.
We got you on the record on that.
Like
the other question was, Mueller finds these lies. I read you the quote. Do you accept that finding? And if so, does the president condemn those lies that interfered with his own Justice Department's investigation?
Look, I mean, I know which ones I believe you're talking about. The president doesn't support anyone telling lies. So let's be crystal clear on that. In the course of this investigation, if people were under oath and made inconsistent statements or statements that were material, there's a standard that applies under false statement under 1001 of the 18 U.S.C., which is the criminal code. I'm trying not to be that technical, Nicole, but under the criminal code, there's a standard that applies. So that's what that is. No one supports anybody suborning perjury or talking about perjury or changing testimony.
It's interesting to learn from you when you received this, confirming on air Tuesday, as well as your discussions with our journalist, Brian Williams.
Tuesday and Wednesday, by the way. We were there Tuesday and Wednesday, to be clear. Yep.
Understood. And so getting you on the record, as well as having the back and forth with Brian and Nicole and myself, on a big news day for your client, Jay Sekulow, attorney for the President of the United States. Thanks, you for joining our coverage.
Thanks, team.
Thank you. All right, Ari, what have we learned?
Well, you heard the news there. A lot of debate over when we're going to get this report. I think everyone knows about that. Mr. Sekulow, and this is why interviewing people can always yield information, just confirmed on MSNBC that they had this report on Tuesday. Chairman Nadler said last night that he viewed this process as inappropriate and suspicious. It will be interesting and newsworthy, Brian, to hear other leaders like Chairman Nadler, who has oversight over the Justice Department, react to that as well, because the questions now are about if parts of the report are positive or fair to the White House, and we've been reporting out some of them that are, like what I just reported on Don Jr. Why such a suspicious rollout, and why a selective release? We'll see what other officials say about that.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.